Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first Tuesday Talks, brought to you in part by the Torn Underground podcast. I am your host, Paul. Today, for our very first episode, we have two elimination legends amongst us, Stretch and Meanmike. We're going to talk about everything elimination, from pink power to the latest changes this year. I am so excited to get this series started and for you all to hear what these folks have to say. Okay, welcome everyone to our very first episode of Tuesday Talks, part of the Torn Underground podcast. We have two legends amongst us today, volunteered to be our first guests. We have Mike and Stretch. Mike, Stretch, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
We are so excited to have you all on. Focus for today's conversation is going to be all things elimination. Hoping to get, from two experienced leaders, your takes on what it's like to lead a team and what the experience is for you. But, before we dive in, the first question I have for y'all is, the day elimination opens, like the competition opens, you could pick a team. How many people are messaging you all?
Lots.
Oh, it's hundreds at this point.
Yeah. We're victims of our own accolades, I think.
Right.
Yeah. It's not uncommon. I'm sure this Mike's the same way. It's not like we're sitting there on any other day, not talking to a whole bunch of people, but it's definitely amplified on a day like that because it's all about social networking. That realistically, up until this last year, which changed quite a bit, so much of it's the social networking to get everything lined up the way you want it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm definitely one of the several hundred people that message you, like, which team do you got every year? And like I said, this year was a little bit different. We'll talk about it this year, but I do remember, messaging you both. Stretch, you and I chat a little bit, and then Mike 3 days later is like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I already know where we stand if that's the case." So do you guys feel like when you go into each elimination that you're looking to lead the team? Is it kind of like by default people are already turning to you all because you have a little bit of a history of winning and kind of putting a target on your backs?
This is the first year that I really didn't have a whole lot of a plan because it was all random. So I just kind of came in like not knowing what to expect, as far as who we're gonna end up with, and then when I did find out what I stumbled into, it was quite a surprise.
Yeah, definitely.
That shedded hard.
Stretch?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm kind of the same way. I definitely prefer a little bit of the control aspect where I can, as much control as you can have when you have 1,000 members, and I realistically can communicate with maybe a couple hundred at most.
Yeah.
But this last year definitely completely different. And I actually went into it going, okay, somebody step up, like go ahead, take a chance. And unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot of that this year. And I had fun and I enjoyed it. And it was another crazy year. But most years though, I do go in with at least a plan of possibly leading.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's. And because you lead, people, and knowing people, honestly, if a leader that doesn't know people is not going to get very far in elimination. That's just plain and simple. If somehow some random player gets put in as a leader, and it's happened a couple times over the years, they get shut out of these alliances, which realistically, if you're not in an alliance, you're not going to go very far because you need that connectivity.
Yeah. I feel like every year, like it's like 3 days into the planning and there's one or two teams where it's like, what the hell's going on? Like, is it a complete dumpster fire over there? Right. We haven't heard anything. There's no leader that has emerged. And it could be frustrating for some of the more experienced leaders and stronger teams where they're like, okay, we need some numbers, and no one on either side of the alliance has a beat on these one or two teams. It's an elimination social game, like you said. It's very important to have people that So do you feel like you both have a couple go-to people, other strong leaders that you will reach out to. How do you approach those subjects with them to see if they want to work together this year?
A lot of times for me, I mean, there's always going to be, 5 to 10 of the same leads from the previous time.
Yeah.
So you kind of have those people, and it's, what's funny is it's not always faction members that you're going to. Sure, you can lean back on that, but like a lot of times for me, I'm looking at the non-faction people first in hopes that, okay, if I can score X, Y, and Z who are leading other teams, I have a higher chance of also landing my faction members. So I'm going to probably hit out that direction first. And so you've got to keep your mind open, though, because today's one of the biggest things I tell people all the time is today's enemy is tomorrow's ally, and vice versa, real fast in elimination. Don't get so comfy with somebody that you get lazy, and don't just sit there and create hate with somebody or create a bad situation because when somebody gets eliminated and all of a sudden everything gets turned on its side.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really telling, because I mean, it was after the insurgency war that, I think it was both of you teamed up with. Do I have my dates correctly? After the insurgency war, we had leaders on both sides of insurgency that put their differences aside for the good of their team.
Yeah, the Lumberjacks.
Yeah,
we had like me, Stretch, Z Junior, a bunch of people from Relentless. I mean,
wasn't Ohadic in there? And I forget it. There was quite a few of us in it. We were all across, and that is the first thing I try to do. Realistically, is you drop your faction tag at the door.
Yeah,
right.
I have in elimination games. I had an elimination year where I had Deck Lauren, Devil, myself, all on the same team. I was actually hossed more by Deck Lauren during that elimination than any other player in the game.
How hard was that for you all to kind of put differences aside? Emotions were still kind of running hot. For those that don't know, insurgency was the big war that took place where it was pretty much half of Torn against the JFX faction family for the Battle of the Island, which resulted in kind of JFK going into a rebuild mode for a few years. What was it like to kind of put those differences aside and to work together for the team?
We want to win, dude. That's what we're there to do, is win.
Yeah,
it's a lot more than hold on to some petty beef for some people that you're supposed to hate but really don't care either way. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a game, and realistically, it's a game. So there's two things for me when it comes to a game. I want to have fun, and I want to win. And you know what the most fun thing you can do when you play a game is? Win.
Right.
So for me, sure, playing the whole process is great, but winning really, that's the most fun part of it. You get down to the end, you go, hey, here I am. I just won, So for me, it doesn't matter, the name in front of the tag in front of your name or what history we have. Like I said, I have had, over the time, probably between Mike and I, we've had probably 3/4 the active player base under us at one time or another in an elimination team. So realistically, you've kind of got to manage however you can.
Oh yeah, and I think that's one of the questions that a lot of the Torn community kind of sits with at the end at the start of each elimination is, do we choose Mike or Stretch? Like they might just put a target on their back, and maybe this is the year they don't really go all out for it because they already have all the merits, right? They have everything that they need. What's the incentive for them to win again? So that's not the case for you all, is what I'm getting.
I want to win every year. Even like this year, which was a complete and utter shit show, I still let my will to try to go as far as I could pretty much influence everything I said or did in the whole competition. I don't want to get into the dynamics of it, but like there was a point where if I left the leader chat for 10 minutes, they were striking up a vote to boot me because I wasn't going along with the plan. I literally had to miss work and stay up all night because I just couldn't turn my back on the channel. You know what I mean?
Right.
And halfway through it, I was like, this is a pain in the ass. I already got all the merits. Why am I bothering? And the
Yeah.
answer was because I want to win and because there were people on that team that counted on me to do what I do every year, and that's try my freaking best to win. So I wasn't going to let them down. I wasn't going to let myself down, and I wasn't going to just, give up. But you got to do what you got to do, pretty much. I mean, it
Mm.
sucks. It is what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's like what one of the most important qualities of a leader of a team is, trusting that it's somebody that's gonna, want to win, right? There is no points for second place, right? Somebody who's not gonna settle and sell out their team for a top five thing. I feel like that's something that grinds my gears every single year. It sounds like, oh, we may not win, so let's just settle for fifth instead of sixth. And it's like, what are you doing if that's why you signed up to be leader? But this year, let's talk about this year, and we don't need to get too much into the details. I know, it's still kind of fresh, and it kind of left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. But it this year was different, right? Ched changed it up a little bit. Previously, you were allowed to pick from a pool of four teams, and you were able to kind of choose a team based on that. And people had some complaints about that because it would lead to some powerhouse teams, which well, it did at the end of the day, when you had that choice. And this year that went away, and everyone had to choose at random. So can you guys talk a little bit about that how that change affected things, and how as you both agree, this year is kind of a shit show?
I'll be honest, I didn't like it so much. Of my honestly, so much of the enjoyment was kind of finding ways to help maximize those people you're with if you can. I mean, and in the end, you still had two or three teams that were so far superior to the rest when it came to firepower that it was it was going to be a personnel issue if they weren't going to win. I guess is probably the best way to put it. So for me, I would definitely prefer to see us go back with choosing one of four, but that's a lot of that. A lot of my enjoyment is, oh, hey, I don't play with player X, Y, and Z via faction, but I'd sure like to play with them in elimination. And that there's a number of people like that, including Mike or Paul or any of you guys that, that I don't always get to play with directly.
Yeah.
But if I have the opportunity, I'm like, hey, come join my team, because the elimination is a lot more fun when you do have a group that comes together. Mike and I have had times where literally we've sat in voice, even with eliminated teams, and we're sitting there playing Discord games with the other leaders, because of such a good time we've had with those people. And that's the kind of stuff that really, really does make it a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It's supposed to be fun.
It is. It is. So I think this year kind of, what the major politic conversation was, is there an all leader Monarch alliance, right? Are there 5 or 6 teams out there that all consist of Monarch members that are leaders? Do they all have this, unspoken alliance, right? Where they're communicating and they're making agreements with? Do you feel like that's something we'll see in the past, where you'll have a faction family kind of, spread their resources across and say, hey, if we all work together, right, we have somebody in every single one of these teams, then maybe we can, make it to a final 5 and duke it out from there?
That's not that uncommon, realistically. If you have a really good faction family, you're going to have people, be it CR, be it PT, be it Monarch, be it NS or JFK or whomever. If you've got, when you're looking at 3 or 4 factions and some of the top people in the game, there's people, the people are going to listen to those big names that they recognize from either the Hall of Fame or the forums or whatever. So it's pretty common for that kind of thing to happen. This time it was a Monarch. Other times it's been accused of being NS or whatever. It just really depends on who gets elected leads. And in this case, they had that opportunity. But there's really, you can't really do a whole lot about that, though. If you don't like that or don't want them to lead, play better.
Yeah. do you think that you would encourage both of your factions, because you both are also leaders of two of the biggest factions of the game? Do you think you would encourage your members to, hey, get into some leadership positions if you can, so that, hey, if you think that there is an all Monarch or all JFK or all PT alliance starting to happen, at least you have a guy on the inside to be able to say, hey, yes or no, or maybe suggest some different ideas that might make gameplay a little bit more interesting?
Honestly, me, no.
Really?
I mean, I want my guys to have fun. So if they want to lead, they want to lead. That's great. If they don't want to lead, that's great also. I'm not going to push. I mean, a lot of the leaders in NS over time have actually led, and actually a large number of the NS1 people have gotten victory over time through different events. So you're seeing a little bit less, some of those play less, especially this year where you had the gym change. So you had the numbers way down on elimination.
Yeah.
This was the lowest enrollment. And again, I truly believe a chunk of that was due to the gym changes, but also I think some of it had to do with the random team selection too. And I'm not here to guess which one had a higher amount of influence, but I do believe both of them had a chunk of influence on that.
Yeah, I did find the timing to be kind of it impacted elimination with that change to occur. I think it was weeks, or maybe the week or two before elimination rolled out. They released the massive change to remove the cap that you can get in the gym, in gains in the gym, which I'm very supportive of the change. Just the timing did affect,
for sure,
one of our favorite competitions in the game. One of the things that I don't think a lot of people really kind of understand when it comes to leading a elimination team is the time commitment, right? And the effect that it can have even on your own personal life, because the game, and especially if you make it to the final one or two teams, it takes two full weeks of your life. And I think one of the things that I've realized as the leader of a team is, when you're in an alliance with other people, you can kind of tell which folks are, able to give the time commitment and which people aren't. And those that aren't, their teams, definitely suffer. They miss messages. They miss out on big moves. And their teams kind of fall along the wayside. Can you both, Mike, we'll start with you, talk about the time commitment of what it takes to lead a team, kind of what you've personally done over the years. Have you found a middle ground, that sort of thing?
Up until this year, I would say the answer to that question would be yeah. It's like working with Stretch. It was simple. He did the day shift, I did the night shift. 10 or 11 o'clock, I would come on, take the tag, and just hop in and take it up. And then he'd wake up in the morning, and I'd do turn over to him, and we just had 24/7 constant top leadership on it. Like this year, Natty H, she was constantly on all the time. If it wasn't for the plan and all the inner workings and motivations of it, I mean, me and her could have led that team a lot farther than we did by ourselves, because she was on when I wasn't, and vice versa. So much shenanigans shit going on. But like I said, I literally had to, eat, sleep, and shit at my damn desk. Imagine Carmen's mom.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you got people in the right time zones and people with the work ethic and the will to win, I mean, they're on when they're supposed to be on, and you can set it up like that. It's one of the first things I look for entering leadership is, okay, man, where's everybody at time zone wise? How are we going to provide coverage? Because you need, as we've learned over the years, you need to be on and ready for anything all the time, all the way around the clock.
Right. And I guess one of the biggest nightmares to have happen is, you go to bed, everything's sorted and you feel good, or you had to work feeling everything is all taken care of. And then you get home, or you'll wake up and you're like, oh my God, everything is in a damn disarray. Right. And it's not a good feeling. And I know, Mike, you and I have had those moments in the past as well. Stretch, I remember, when I was on staff for that year, we have a, hey, we're away from the office channel in our Slack chat. Right before the elimination, you would say, hey, I'm going to be kind of taking a step away. Is that true? Do you take kind of like a break from staff in a way during elimination to focus on it?
Absolutely. That is the time. There's no way. I mean, leading an elimination team is never a one-man thing. Like, even if you have 3 leaders or whatever you have, there's dozens of people doing important things for that team. But as a leader, if you're not constantly trying to find your, work with your team, and it's not just talking to people outside your team, but, talking to people inside your team. You got people asking questions and are wanting to know information. There's misinformation. And so, yeah, there's really no way to try to manage doing regular staff work for me and then at the same time properly handle an elimination team like that.
Yeah.
I'll comment on that. I'll just take it a step further. The leads in CR, they just fucking forget they know me for 3 weeks. It's like when I get done, I'm like, okay, guys, I'm back. And they're like, okay, you're part of the faction again, because I got such tunnel vision on the limbs. I might pop in the leadership channel to complain about something stupid that somebody did or whatever, but for the most part, I'm not even a faction member at that point. I'm just gone.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's amazing how
I have such great people there that the freaking place is on autopilot, and I humbly say that they don't even miss my ass anyway.
Yeah,
it all works out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge time commitment, right? And that's the thing I like the most. About it is, it puts you kind of into this new environment, forces you to play with players again that, like we said, you wouldn't normally play with. And if you are a good leader, usually you have a team of really stacked people around you to help you out. I think one of the challenges every year for either first time leaders or new people to elimination is how do you effectively lead a team when you have a lot of young players, low stat players who have some of the most basic questions in the world, like how do I buy armor, right? And as a leader, you have a lot of things on your mind. Mike, how have you kind of solved that problem?
Dude, you just got to be patient, man, because you are talking to people that basically, unless they're sending you a spam as a level 2 asking you for money, that you would never interact with.
Yeah.
And they're looking at you as one of the top players in the game, top leader or top faction or whatever the hell they, however they see you, but they're looking at you as a lead and someone that can help them. So you got to do your job and you got to help them. You just got to be patient and roll your eyes and answer the really silly noob questions and encourage them. I mean, I think honestly that's the best part of being a leader, is that you can take this level nothing nobody who hasn't really made a mark on the game yet and get them where they're pumped and they're hype and they're laying out 1,000 hits out of nowhere because you talk to them and you treat them like a teammate instead of some noob that you don't know.
Yeah,
it's really key. And I think that if you look at the leaders that have the most success, I mean, those are the people that get the most out of their people. Like even Uncle last year, I mean, people talk shit about him, using his money for FHCs and his treasure chest for his players. Dude, the guy wanted to freaking win. You know what I mean? So he did whatever it took, but he got those people hyped and he got them pumped. And even with 3 lives left, they never freaking gave up. And that comes from the very top. It comes from Uncle himself. And as everybody knows, I'm not really on his Christmas card list or anything, but no matter what, the dude gave it everything he freaking had, and he never gave up, and he kept his team in that very same mindset, and that's why they won.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's huge. Stretch, can you speak to that importance as well of kind of motivating the middle and encouraging new players, because you could very easily ignore most of these people, right, Stretch, and kind of leave them to find their answers elsewhere, right? And then maybe they don't participate as much. Can you speak to the importance of motivating those people?
Absolutely. Every single person on your team is the most important player on your team at any given moment, because when it comes to elimination, all it takes is that one person to get one more hit than the opponent that you stay in. So it doesn't matter if you've got 5, whatever it's 14 days or whatever it is now allowed in the game to join elimination, or 10,000 days. It's all about being connected. You're part of the team. Every person's, I mean, we spend time. I know a lot of times we'll have members create how-to guides going
Yeah.
down to the smallest. Okay, here's the armors you want. Here's this. Here's that. Creating an armory to send out stuff. We have donations where people are like, here, and you have tons of donations where you send out drugs or armor or whatever, just trying everything you can to get one little bit of edge, because that one extra hit is all you may need. I mean, especially because eliminations evolve so much. I mean, in the old days where it was every 50, the once an hour and or the once a day.
Yeah.
It's changed, but there's so much importance on every single little hit and every single little bit of effort. So the best thing you can do is connect with your people. Ensure that they know that you believe in them and that they're important, because if they're not going to see that you care about what they're doing, they're going to, we're going to get hospitalized a whole bunch of times, and then he's going to log off. And that's really one of the first things you got to tell people straight away is, you know what? You're going to get hospitalized, and it's going to be a lot, especially if you're a newer player. Okay.
Yeah.
You've just got to keep working through it and do your best, and any little bit you can do is going to be a huge help. And then some of the people that do get to the point where they're demoralized, you can even find ways to keep them connected.
Yeah.
And, I know Mike and I both have done this a number of times, is you start sending out messages to the non-hitters. So you get people that really want to help, but they can't do anything for whatever reason, that they're small or they're limited on bandwidth or whatever. And you find things that they can do. You do the countdowns. I've had some of the best push captains be totally random players that I've never heard of, but they want to be involved, and man, they get. And the thing is, it's keeping people engaged during that, and that's really what you're doing. And the best push captains are those that keep chat going. You keep it positive. You keep everybody feeling like what they're doing is important. You're always trying to find the next little bit of positivity, even if you're like the bankers were, where they're getting just pummeled, but that turned into an underdog story. That galvanized that team, man. All they needed was a couple more breaks, and they win that thing. It wouldn't have been any.
Yeah,
we were super hyped.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that whole team, that is the happiest team I have ever seen.
Who didn't win.
Getting just completely obliterated the entire time, and they did everything they could.
I think we were absorbing, like, what was it, like 10,000 hits a day or something like that.
It was a huge
That was
amount.
my favorite elimination, by the way.
That was my next question was, and Mike, I guess we'll start with you, is like, tell me about your favorite elimination and what made it your favorite.
Well, I mean, the obvious answer would be Lumberjacks, because I got to do it with my good friend, and we just nailed it from top to bottom. We didn't have to screw a lot of people over. You know what I mean? And we still managed to run the table at the end. That was the best experience I've had as far as like winning the game, winning the competition, and just kicking ass. But there's really no substitute for that total banker experience. I mean, like you said, we just got our asses whomped for days and days, and we just could not find a fuck to give seriously anywhere. We were like, let's just keep doing it, boys. We got it. And then we like started knocking people out of the game. And it just fed us more and more, more hype. I mean, it was just there's people that I never met in my life that were on Total Bankers that I just are my friends to this day.
Yeah.
Because we just had that experience of getting our asses kicked and not caring.
The number of people that, like you said, that messaged me like, hey, yo, you're a banker, right? That still identify with that connection to this day, right? And we didn't win, right? But still one of the most, like storied teams to this day. I think says a lot, right? And
it's something to be proud of, dude. Honestly, the whole effort was
right. Stretch, what about you? What was your favorite elimination?
Lumberjacks was amazing because we ran that event was probably the most pristine I have seen from start to finish. Hey, but for me, it was probably the Pink Power year. Just because of what we went through to get through on that one.
Can you talk about that? Because, a lot of players who've just started within the past few years probably may have heard of it, but they don't know exactly what happened.
So Pink Power was a team that in the beginning, Ched had special teams that you could only join if you were a gender. Mountain Men for men and Pink Power for women. Well, the first year Pink Power was in existence, that team was strictly people that were, at the time identified as female gender. And so that team kind of got carried along, and it had like a quarter of the regular joining of the other teams. So Nova at the time had the idea to maybe see if we could a bunch of us in JFA and Milk and Cookies, and then select other people here and there to change our genders to see if we could all get together. Because again, one of the things one of the biggest hurdles in elimination is information dissemination within your team. You're only going to be able to communicate with so many people effectively because of they don't use forums, or they don't use Discord, or they don't use Chat and Game, or whatever, and there's no newsletter. So to be able to do it with with two factions, a couple hundred guys or players that you already know and have that communication ability, it was like, ooh, hey, that could be the ticket. So we did it, and we were walking away with it. It kind of similar, actually not that far off when it comes to the way Lumberjacks did it, where we were just rolling through everything. And Ched had agreed it was okay for us to do it, but as he saw it playing out, he changed his mind and decided that it was unfair to the player base. So instead of just taking and eliminating us automatically or something like disqualifying us, he took Duke and sicked him on us. So I want to say it was every 5 minutes or something like that. I forget the exact timing actually at this point, but every X interval, Duke would kill every single member of Pink Power that was out of the hospital. Even if you were overseas. We started going overseas and hiding to avoid him, but then they changed that. So it was difficult. So there was 204, supposedly 204 of us that changed our genders to female for that, and there was air quotes 796 females.
Yeah.
So now, and they were only doing, I shouldn't say the whole Pink Power team. It was strictly those 204 people that had changed their names.
Yeah.
So at that point, there was a lot of unhappy people in our team at that point because, we were killing it. We had, found a way to really tear things up, and there was really nothing that was going to stop us. And so we were a little frustrated, and a lot of us were down. And so we ended up devising a way where we could pin down and actually kill Duke so he wouldn't be killing us.
Within 5 minutes.
Within that time, and then have the 796 doing the other damage.
So what you're saying is, in the process of, competing that year with that team, you developed the first ever NPC attack?
Basically, yes. Yes, absolutely.
I love that story. It's such a good story. And, it kind of speaks to how, Ched, more so in the past would, change his mind and change like the meta of a game and do things on a whim in a way. And we as players would be like, okay, we got to adjust now, right? But as long as you're playing within the rules and the mechanics of the game, that's, all he really cares about. But he also has the freedom as the creator of the game to, do what he wants. Last question I have for you both is, hypothetically speaking, it would be challenging in the future for you both to end up on the same team, right? That's a 1 in 24 chance for both of you all to choose the same team. Hypothetically speaking, let's say you both end up in the same team again. How would do you think, you would win? Do you think you'd be the first targets? Would you let other people be leaders? Mike, we'll start with you.
Well, you definitely would have to induce other people into being leaders. And we're both aware that our reputation kind of precedes us. And we have like with Illuminati, we were both pretty insistent, of keeping as low profile as possible. Of course, we ended up piping in all the damn time anyway because we just can't help it. But we thought that if we were appointed leads or official leads or known to be, involved in any kind of, decision making whatsoever, that we definitely get targeted. I think the best thing to do is just kind of get other people that have good networking. It's like Stretch said, when you look around you after the die has been cast and you see who the leads are, you probably got some stroke with like a couple other, leaders. You need to form that alliance immediately and get your ass protected. At least 6 strong ones, on your side, and then at 6v6, they're not gonna oust you like first. You got to make it through those first few rounds when you got that reputation, that target. You have to survive early, and then you can start making some bonds. But in the end, you are seen as someone who is a danger and a threat and needs to be removed. We talked about getting the Stretch out day 1 last year, all of us.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I love the guy to death, and I really do. I mean, guy's probably my best friend in the fucking game. But if you leave him and you let him hang out, you're gonna regret it.
Yeah.
Because he works magic, man. He can survive. I mean, that's why together we're so damn unstoppable, because he has that. He knows how to stick around. And if you don't get him while you can, you probably ain't gonna get him. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So that's why I see us both, because what I just said about him, it certainly applies to myself as well. If you don't get my ass nice and early, I'll make you sorry.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So people know that. I mean, they're not stupid. And then, the stupid move is to let us hang around. And yet they do it just pretty much every year.
Right. No, I mean, that's a good point. And I feel like that kind of also applies outside of elimination, too, when people talk about, Monarch attacking the island, which, Stretch we won't get into. But, the one thing I've always said is if you think Stretch doesn't have a plan or he's just kind of laying there as a sleeping giant, then you do not know Stretch, and I'm sure this is something he's been thinking about for a long time. But Stretch, if you and Mike are on a team again, how do you think that would play out in the future?
You know what? It's not gonna be just about what Mike and I can do. It's always gonna be about what other people are gonna let us do. I mean, we're gonna go in there and they're gonna talk to us, and we're gonna be like, okay, well, and we're gonna have probably half a dozen teams that want to kill us straight away. That's just, we got to kill them, and that's just because of what we've done. Even if you don't have an optimal team, like sometimes you just don't have the horses.
Yeah.
We've all been down that road where you just don't have that horse. And you're like, okay, well, you try to do everything you can, and you work through it, and you try to do it. But like, if somehow Mike and I get together, it's not like it's just him and I doing it. You still have to have 1,000 people or whatever the team is that's going to work with you, and they've got to buy into what we're selling at that time. And we do a pretty good job at that, but it doesn't always guarantee it every time. It's not as simple as, it just happens. You've got to constantly going at it, constantly be working with them, whoever you've got on your team, because you don't have the same people every time. And especially now with the randomness of it, you're definitely not going to have the same people. So you've got to establish that rapport straight away with all your as many members as you can, because the more you connect with, the more they're going to go and do it for you.
Love it. Mike, any final thoughts you want to add?
No, I think that we should just keep, being vocal about what we see and what we experience, and hopefully, the changes that get made are for the positive to improve the event. I think there's something to learn, every year about how to make it better, and I just hope that the focus to do so remains on the top of the list, because it really is a great competition when played properly, win or lose. It's just there's so many holes in it, and this year was really an eye opener as far as like shit that is wrong that we could probably put some effort into fixing. You know what I mean? It ended up being more about 100 or 150 people than it did the 10,000 that signed up or whatever.
Yeah, a vocal minority.
It needs to be not so fallible when it comes to a certain group of players or a faction of players trying to take over the competition. That needs to be combated and worked against.
Yeah, definitely. Stretch, I guess I'll give you the final word here.
Honestly, I think the competition, we're going to play it no matter what. I'm telling you, Mike and I tomorrow, if it started up and they did exactly, rolled it out just like they did last year, Mike and I are going to sign right back up because it's fun.
Yeah.
Sure, you're always literally every team you're going to be on is going to have some shitters that are going to try to stir stuff up.
Yeah.
Everything. Sometimes they're a nobody. Sometimes they're a big player. Sometimes they're part of your leadership. Like, I've accepted people that I want no business with as part of a leadership group at one time because I know that person carries X group of people on my team or another team. Sure, that it may not feel great doing it, but sometimes you got to work. I mean, Mike had to deal with a whole lot of guys that he's not breaking any bread anytime soon with, but he worked with them as best he could. So the part of it truly is being able to manage those personalities, even if it's people you're not tight with, because you're never going to get a team with 1,000 people you're best buddies with.
These are true statements. Mike, Stretch, I want to thank you both for taking the time to be on the pod today, and for those that listened in and tuned in to our first episode, I hope you all learned a thing or two about elimination and what it's like to lead from the top.